The massacre at Mercy Station, the medical station, hung in space like a beacon of hope against the star-filled darkness of the Andromeda sector. Mercy Station was humanity's greatest achievement in interstellar medicine, a massive, rotating cylinder that housed over 50,000 beings from dozens of species. Its white hull gleamed with the universal symbol of healing. Red crosses painted so large they could be seen from 100 kilometers away. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of Medical Ward 7, watching another transport ship dock at the station's main port. The vessel bore the scorched hull markings of recent combat, and she knew its cargo holds would be filled with wounded soldiers from both sides of the ongoing galactic civil war. At 35, Sarah had already earned a reputation as one of the finest trauma surgeons in human space, but nothing had prepared her for the scale of suffering she witnessed daily at Mercy Station. Another full load coming in, Doc called Nurse Jake Morrison from behind her. The former Earth Marines medic had served 3 tours in the Outer Rim conflicts before joining the medical corps. His weathered face showed the strain of treating thousands of patients over the past 6 months, but his hands remained steady, and his compassion unwavering. Sarah nodded, already mentally preparing for the next wave of patients. The station's medical bay could accommodate nearly any species known to galactic civilization. Atmospheric processors maintained different breathing environments in separate sections, while universal translators ensured that words of comfort could be understood by every patient, regardless of their world of origin. Status report on current capacity, Sarah asked as they walked toward the main medical bay. We're at 92%. Doc, Captain Vasquez, has authorized the conversion of Cargo Bay 4 into additional surgical suites. The vegan refugees from the Altair system are still recovering from radiation exposure, and we've got about 300 Krillian prisoners of war in the secure medical wing. Sarah frowned at the mention of the Krillians. The reptilian species had been humanity's most aggressive opponent in the galactic conflict, their military culture viewing any sign of mercy as weakness. Yet here on Mercy Station, wounded Krillian soldiers received the same level of care as human casualties. It was a principle that defined humanity's approach to medicine throughout the galaxy. The transport ship's docking clamps engaged with a deep vibration that traveled through the station's superstructure. Within minutes, the airlocks opened and stretcher teams began moving patients into the receiving bay. Sarah watched as human medics worked alongside Altarian healers, vegan crystal singers, and even reformed Krillian field medics who had requested asylum. Priority case coming through, announced Lieutenant Commander Torres, the station's triage officer. Krillian civilian, female, approximately 20 years old by their aging standards. Severe plasma burns, covering 40% of her body. Sarah moved immediately to the incoming stretcher. The young Krillian's scales were charred black along her left side, and her breathing was labored. Her large yellow eyes tracked Sarah's movements with the mix of fear and hope that transcended species boundaries. "Get her to Surgery 3, Sarah ordered. "Jake, I'll need you to assist. Have Dr. Patel prep the dermal regeneration matrix." As they rushed toward the surgical suite, Sarah's mind focused entirely on the task ahead. She had performed this procedure hundreds of times, but each patient was unique. The Krillian's reptilian physiology required careful calibration of the medical nanobots that would repair her damaged tissue. 3 hours later, Sarah emerged from surgery, exhausted but satisfied. The young Krillian would recover fully, her scales regenerating without scarring. It was victories like these that made the endless work worthwhile, proof that medicine could bridge the gaps between species even when their governments were at war. "Dr. Chen, please report to command immediately," came the announcement over the station's communication system. Sarah exchanged a concerned glance with Jake. Captain Elena Vasquez rarely interrupted medical operations, unless something significant was happening. The command center buzzed with activity as Sarah arrived. Captain Vasquez stood at the central holographic display, her expression grave. The display showed the tactical situation in the surrounding space, with friendly vessels marked in blue and potential threats in red. "Doctor, we have a situation developing," Vasquez began without preamble. "Long-range sensors are detecting a large Krillian fleet approaching our position. They're not responding to our medical neutrality broadcasts." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. How large a fleet! 12 heavy cruisers, 4 dreadnoughts, and over 50 smaller vessels. "It's a full battle group, Doctor, and they're jamming all communications with the outside galaxy." The implications were staggering. Mercy Station was protected under the Galactic Medical Accords, signed by every major civilization, including the Krillian Empire. Attacking a medical facility was considered a war crime of the highest order. "Maybe they're bringing wounded," Sarah suggested, though she knew it was wishful thinking. Medical transports were small, fast vessels, not battle fleets. "I'm afraid not, Doctor. We're detecting weapons, charging signatures. They're preparing for combat." The first sign of the approaching disaster came from the station's early warning systems. Proximity alarms began wailing throughout Mercy Station. As the Krillian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, the massive reptilian warships moved with predatory grace, their dark hulls bristling with weapons systems. "All hands, this is Captain Vasquez. We are under potential threat from an approaching hostile fleet. All medical personnel are to continue normal operations. This is a protected medical facility under galactic law. Repeat, continue normal operations." But Sarah knew that normal operations were about to become impossible. She rushed back to the medical bay, where hundreds of patients lay vulnerable and defenseless. Among them were wounded Krillian soldiers, prisoners of war who had been receiving the same standard of care as any other patient. The attack began without warning. Warlord Zektar, commanding the Krillian fleet from his flagship Bloodfang, had decided that mercy was a luxury his species could no longer afford. In his cold reptilian mind, every human saved was a future enemy soldier. Every alien treated was a potential ally against Krillian expansion. "Begin the cleansing," he hissed to his weapons officer. No survivors. The first plasma barrage struck Mercy Station's outer hull like the wrath of angry gods. The station's defensive shields, designed only to protect against space debris and radiation, collapsed instantly under the concentrated fire of military-grade weapons. Brilliant energy cascaded across the white hull, turning the red medical crosses into molten slag. Emergency lighting flickered on throughout the station as primary power systems overloaded. In the medical bays, gravity fluctuated wildly, causing patients to cry out in pain as their bodies were jostled in their healing pods. Medical equipment sparked and failed as electromagnetic pulses from the weapons fire disrupted delicate electronics. Sarah found herself thrown against a bulkhead as the station shuddered under the assault. Around her, medical staff struggled to maintain their patients' life support systems while the very structure of their sanctuary came apart. The artificial gravity failed completely in Section C, sending patients and equipment floating in zero-G chaos. "All medical personnel, begin." "Emergency evacuation procedures," Captain Vasquez announced over the failing communication system. priority to critical patients and those who cannot be moved. But Sarah knew there was nowhere to evacuate to. The escape pods were designed for small-scale emergencies, not the wholesale destruction of a medical facility. Most of her patients couldn't survive the journey to the nearest inhabited world, even if they could reach the pods. Jake Morrison appeared at her side, his face grim. "Doc, we've got hull breaches in Medical Bay 2. The Altarian patients are losing atmosphere." Sarah made the decision that would define her final moments. "Get as many portable life support units as you can carry. We're going to keep treating patients until the end." The second wave of attacks targeted the station's life support systems. Krillian fighters, small and deadly, swarmed around the crippled medical facility like carrion birds. Their precision strikes cut power to critical systems, flooding some sections with deadly radiation while others lost atmosphere entirely. In Surgery 3, Dr. Patel refused to abandon his patient, a young human soldier whose spinal cord he was reconstructing. Even as the operating room's blast shields descended and emergency power failed, he continued working by the light of a handheld medical scanner. "I'm not leaving him," he told the evacuation team. 20 more minutes and he'll walk again." Throughout the station, similar scenes played out. Nurse Morrison stayed with a group of vegan children, their crystal-based physiology requiring constant monitoring. Dr. Kim maintained life support for a Krillian elder whose own people were now trying to murder him. The third assault wave targeted the station's central core. Warlord Zektar had grown impatient with the slow destruction. He wanted to send a message to the galaxy that would echo through history. "Fire the plasma torpedoes," he commanded. "End this." Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the emergency command center, now serving as Captain Vasquez's medical advisor as they coordinated the impossible evacuation. Through the reinforced viewport, she could see the Krillian fleet closing in for the final assault. The station's remaining defensive systems were failing one by one, and she knew they had minutes at most. "Sarah, you need to get to an escape pod," Vasquez urged. "The station's reactor is destabilizing." "I'm not leaving my patients," Sarah replied firmly. "There are over 2,000 beings in the medical bays who can't be moved. Someone has to stay with them." The plasma torpedoes struck like hammers of judgment. The first impact tore through the station's outer ring, vaporizing Medical Bay 5 and everyone in it. The second torpedo punched through the central hub, causing catastrophic structural failure throughout the massive facility. Sarah felt the deck buckle beneath her feet as the station's superstructure began to collapse. Emergency force fields failed, one by one, venting atmosphere and helpless patients into the vacuum of space. She grabbed the emergency transmitter, knowing she had only seconds before the communication array was destroyed. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen, Chief Medical Officer of Mercy Station," she broadcast on all frequencies. "We are under attack by Krillian forces. This is a protected medical facility. We have wounded of all species aboard, including Krillian patients. Please, ... remember us." The transmission cut off as the final torpedo struck the station's reactor core. The explosion lit up the darkness of space like a newborn star, visible from a dozen light-years away. Mercy Station, humanity's greatest monument to healing and compassion, died in fire and silence. Warlord Zektar watched the destruction with satisfaction. In his mind, he had struck a blow against human morale that would echo throughout the galaxy. The soft-hearted humans would learn that mercy was weakness, and weakness was death. He was wrong. The message reached Earth Defense Command for hours later, transmitted by an automated probe that had recorded the station's final moments. Admiral Marcus Webb, a gray-haired veteran of 30 years of military service, watched the recording in stunned silence. Around him, his staff officers stood equally shocked as they witnessed the systematic murder of 50,000 innocent beings. "Sir," his aide whispered, "the Galactic Council is demanding an immediate response. The Altarian Federation is calling for full military action." Webb nodded slowly, his weathered face showing no emotion, but inside, something cold and implacable was awakening. He had spent his entire career fighting to protect humanity's ideals of mercy and compassion. Now those very ideals had been used as weapons against them. "Contact the Reaper Division," he said quietly. "Tell Colonel Hartwell that the protocol is now active." His aide paled. The Reaper Protocol was humanity's most classified military program, known only to the highest levels of government. It was the shadow behind humanity's compassionate face, the sword hidden behind the shield of mercy. "Sir, are you certain?" "The Reaper Protocol hasn't been used since the Tau Ceti incident." Webb turned to face his staff, and they saw something in his eyes that made them step back. It was the look of a man who had seen too much suffering, who had finally reached the limit of his patience with those who mistook kindness for weakness. "They attacked our healers," he said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "They murdered doctors and nurses and patients. They turned our mercy into a weapon against us." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Now they'll learn what happens when you wake sleeping giants. Activate the Reapers, hunt them down, all of them." The message went out on encrypted channels that didn't officially exist, using communication networks that had never appeared on any government documentation, in hidden facilities throughout human space. Men and women who had no names and no past received their orders. The hunt was about to begin. The Reapers, vengeance in the depths of a classified facility on Luna. Colonel David Ghost Hartwell received the activation codes that he had hoped never to see. The Reaper Division's underground command center hummed with activity as dozens of technicians began powering up systems that had remained dormant for over a decade. Hartwell was a man who seemed to exist in shadows, his pale eyes and silver hair making him appear almost ethereal. At 52, he had spent more years in the darkness of covert operations than most people spent in the light of normal life. The Reaper Division was his life's work, humanity's answer to a galaxy that sometimes required more than diplomacy and medicine. "Full activation confirmed, Colonel," reported his operations officer, Major Sarah Venom Torres. "All Reaper teams are reporting ready status." The Reapers were humanity's most closely guarded secret. While the galaxy saw humans as healers and peacemakers, the Reaper Division trained the deadliest soldiers in known space. They were ghosts who walked between the stars, eliminating threats that conventional military forces couldn't touch. "Status on the Krillian fleet?" Hartwell asked, his voice carrying the soft menace of a predator. "Intelligence indicates they're celebrating their victory at the Nexus system. Warlord Zektar has declared the destruction of Mercy Station a great victory for the Krillian Empire. They're not expecting retaliation." Hartwell's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his pale eyes. "They will be disappointed. Brief me on the target." The main display showed detailed intelligence on the Krillian fleet. Every ship was catalogued, every officer identified, every weakness mapped. The Reapers had been watching and waiting for years preparing for the day when their skills would be needed. Zektar commands from the dreadnought Bloodfang. The fleet consists of 4 dreadnoughts, 12 heavy cruisers, and 57 smaller vessels. Total crew complement approximately 80,000, and our assets. Reaper Team Alpha is already in position aboard the cargo hauler Destiny's Edge. They've been tracking the fleet for 6 hours. Teams Beta through Echo are moving into position as we speak. Hartwell nodded. The Reapers had perfected the art of invisible warfare over decades of operations. They could board enemy ships without triggering alarms, eliminate entire crews without firing a shot, and disappear before anyone knew they had ever been there. Rules of engagement. No survivors among the primary targets. The crews who participated in the attack are to be eliminated. Any Krillian personnel who attempted to refuse orders or protect medical personnel are to be spared. It was a distinction that mattered to humanity's moral code. Even in vengeance, they maintained their principles. The innocent would be protected, even if they wore enemy uniforms. Sergeant Lisa Phantom Rodriguez adjusted her stealth suit as she floated in the cargo bay of the disguised transport ship. Around her, her 5-person team performed final equipment checks with the mechanical precision of professionals who had done this hundreds of times before. "Phantom, this is Ghost," came Hartwell's voice through her encrypted com. "You are authorized to begin the hunt." "Copy that, Ghost. Phantom team is going dark." The transport ship's cargo bay depressurized silently, its doors opening to reveal the massive bulk of the Krillian dreadnought. The ship hung in space like a predator at rest, its dark hull scarred by decades of warfare. Point defense systems swept the surrounding space with sensor beams, but they were calibrated to detect ships and missiles, not individual soldiers in advanced stealth gear. Rodriguez and her team launched themselves into the void, their suits micro-thrusters providing silent propulsion toward their target. They moved like ghosts through the darkness, invisible to both sensors and the naked eye. The Bloodfang's hull was a fortress of armored plates and defensive systems, but the Reapers had studied Krillian ship designs for years. They knew every weakness, every maintenance hatch, every blind spot in the sensor networks. "Breachpoint Alpha," Rodriguez whispered into her com. Proceeding with hull penetration, her team's molecular acid ate through the armored hull like fire through paper, creating an opening just large enough for a human to pass through. They entered the ship's service corridors, moving through maintenance spaces that even the crew rarely visited. The Bloodfang's corridors were designed for Krillian physiology, with lower ceilings and wider passages to accommodate their reptilian frames. The lighting was dimmer than humans preferred, casting long shadows that the Reapers used to their advantage. "Multiple targets identified," reported Corporal Alex Shade Kim, the team's technical specialist. "I'm detecting 27 Krillian life signs in the command sector." Rodriguez consulted her mission briefing. According to intelligence, every officer in the command sector had participated in the decision to attack Mercy Station. None had voiced objections or attempted to refuse orders. "Weapons free," she whispered. "Remember, clean and quiet." The Reapers moved through the ship like death itself, their advanced weapons firing silent pulses of energy that stopped Krillian hearts instantly. They encountered no resistance because their enemies never knew they were there until it was too late. Lieutenant Tom Wraith Johnson, the team's sniper specialist, took position in the ship's main engineering section. His weapon was a marvel of human technology, capable of firing projectiles that could punch through Krillian armor at impossible angles. Asterisk. Engineering secured, he reported. 17 targets eliminated. Power core is under our control. Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out as multiple Reaper teams moved with deadly precision. They were judge, jury, and executioner for those who had chosen to make war on healers and innocents. On the bridge of the Bloodfang, Warlord Zektar was reviewing reports from his fleet when the lights suddenly dimmed. His yellow eyes narrowed as he turned to his sensor operator. "What was that?" "Unknown, my lord. I'm detecting power fluctuations throughout the ship." Before the operator could say more, a figure materialized from the shadows at the rear of the bridge. Colonel Hartwell stepped into the light, his pale eyes fixed on the Krillian commander. "Warlord Zektar," he said quietly, "you attacked our healers." Zektar's hand moved toward his weapon, but froze as he realized he was surrounded. 5 more figures had appeared from nowhere, their weapons trained on every Krillian officer on the bridge. "You're human," Zektar hissed. "Your kind doesn't have soldiers like this." "You're wrong," Hartwell replied. "We have always had soldiers like this. We just prefer not to use them." The Krillian commander's scales bristled with rage. "You cannot be here. Our sensors would have detected you. Your sensors detected nothing, because we chose to remain hidden. Just as we have chosen to remain hidden for decades while you and others like you spread violence throughout the galaxy." Zektar's eyes darted around the bridge, looking for some means of escape or attack. But the human soldiers were positioned with tactical perfection, covering every angle and every possible threat. "What do you want?" he demanded. "Justice," Hartwell replied, simply. "You destroyed a medical facility. You murdered doctors and nurses and patients. You turned our mercy into a weapon against us. It was a legitimate military target. It was a hospital," Hartwell said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute judgment. "And now you pay the price." The Reaper colonel raised his hand, and his team moved with silent efficiency. Every Krillian officer on the bridge died in the same instant, their bodies dropping to the deck without a sound. Zektar found himself alone, facing the human who had appeared from nowhere to bring retribution. "You still don't understand," Hartwell continued. "Humanity has 2 faces. One is the face of the healer, the teacher, the peacemaker. That is the face we prefer to show the galaxy." He stepped closer, and Zektar saw something in those pale eyes that made his blood run cold. "The other face is the face of the warrior, the hunter, the killer. That is the face we show to those who mistake our kindness for weakness." Zektar tried to speak, but found he had no words. The human before him represented something beyond his understanding, a contradiction that his military mind couldn't process. "Your fleet is already dead," Hartwell informed him. "Every ship that participated in the attack on Mercy Station, every officer who gave or followed orders to fire on medical personnel, they're all gone." As if to confirm his words, the bridge's communication system crackled to life with reports from throughout the fleet. Ship after ship reported systems failures, communication blackouts, and the complete loss of command personnel. "Impossible," Zektar whispered. "We have 80,000 soldiers." Had Hartwell corrected. "The Reapers have been active for 4 hours. Your fleet is nothing but floating hulks now." The Krillian commander stared at the human in horror. "What are you?" "We are the consequence of your actions," Hartwell replied. "We are what happens. When you attack those who heal instead of harm, we are the price of mistaking mercy for weakness." Zektar's warrior instincts finally overcame his shock. He lunged forward, his claws extended, seeking to take at least one human life before his. own ended. But Hartwell moved with inhuman speed, his own weapon rising to meet the attack. The Krillian commander died as he had lived, in violence and rage, but his death was just the beginning of humanity's message to the galaxy. 3 days later, Ambassador Dexana of the Galactic Council stood before the assembled representatives of a dozen civilizations. The elegant crystalline being's form sparkled with agitation as she delivered her report. "The Krillian battle fleet has been completely destroyed," she announced. "Every ship, every officer, every soldier who participated in the attack on Mercy Station has been eliminated." A murmur ran through the assembly. The Krillian Empire had been one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, and the fleet that attacked Mercy Station had been among their finest. "How?" demanded the Altarian representative. "Our intelligence indicated the fleet was at full strength and combat readiness. According to the few surviving witnesses, the humans have a military force that we knew nothing about. They call themselves Reapers, and they appear to be capable of infiltrating and destroying entire fleets without detection." The vegan delegate, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, pulsed with concern. "Are we to understand that humanity has been concealing a significant military capability?" "It appears so," Dexana confirmed. "But intelligence suggests these forces are used only in response to specific provocations. The attack on Mercy Station appears to have triggered some kind of retaliation protocol." Admiral Marcus Webb stepped forward to address the assembly. His weathered face showed no emotion as he spoke. "The Galactic Council has asked for humanity's response to the Krillian attack. Here it is. We will continue to provide medical aid to all species without discrimination. We will continue to operate hospital ships and medical facilities throughout the galaxy. We will continue to heal rather than harm wherever possible." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But we will no longer allow our healers to be targets. Any force that attacks medical personnel or facilities will face the full weight of humanity's response. We have shown you our capacity for mercy. Do not force us to show you our capacity for war." The assembly fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity had revealed that their reputation for peaceful healing was backed by military capabilities that could eliminate entire fleets without warning. "The Reaper Division will remain active," Webb continued. "They will watch, and they will wait. Most of you will never see them or know they exist. But for those who choose to make war on healers and innocents, they will be the last thing you ever see." The message was clear. Humanity's compassion was genuine, but it was not unlimited. They would heal the galaxy's wounds, but they would not tolerate those who sought to create more suffering in the weeks that followed. Medical ships throughout the galaxy noticed a change in how they were treated. Pirates gave them wide berths. Military forces respected their neutrality. The universal symbol of healing became truly universal, protected by an invisible force that few understood but all respected. The Reapers returned to their shadows, their mission complete. They had reminded the galaxy that mercy and strength were not opposites, but partners in the complex dance of civilization, and in the depths of space. When new hospital ships were already being built to replace Mercy Station, humanity continued its mission of healing. They treated all who came to them, regardless of species or allegiance, because that was who they were. But they were never again defenseless. The galaxy had learned that attacking those who heal was not just morally wrong, but strategically suicidal. Humanity's dual nature, healers and warriors, compassionate and lethal, had established a new balance in the ongoing struggle between order and chaos. Dr. Sarah Chen and her colleagues had not died in vain. Their sacrifice had awakened something in humanity that would protect healers throughout the galaxy for generations to come. The Reapers were watching. The Reapers were waiting, and those who would harm the innocent would face the consequences of their choices.